Good evening, Vancouver, and welcome back to Canucks After Dark, July 12th, 2023.
June 12th. June 12th.
What did I say?
July 12th.
Man, I'm in summer mode. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay, who knows the months better than I do. How are you doing today, Clay?
I'm great, Parker. I don't have a big trip that I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Maybe that's why you are so excited. But yes, we are in June, and I'm doing well. Thank you. A bit of a slower week than last week when it comes to family life and family accomplishments, but all the same, doing well. And I'm looking forward to some summer weather as well. But I'm not looking forward to a cool trip like you are going on.
Yeah, well, it's a work trip. It's not going to be super, exciting. But
Yeah.
maybe we'll get to see Vegas win the cup, or at least be in town while that happens. Although, part of me still wants Florida to pull it out. Although it would be, I don't really have a horse in the race. But
Right. What do you think's going to happen?
I think Vegas wins it. I think they're just too strong. Florida just needs to get to OT. Clearly, right? I mean, 7-0 in overtime. They've won 13 games, 7 of them in overtime in the playoffs.
That's
just absurd. So if they can just get every game to overtime, they just got to tie, and then they win. So I think that should be their keys to the game. They have those keys to the game sometimes, and they're the most bland. Like they gotta shoot the puck. And
Yes.
it's like, come on. It's one of those.
Key to the game. Don't lose.
Yeah, score more goals than them in the allotted time.
But truly, and without, I know we were joking around before we went on the air that this is a cool experience. Like, is this your first time to be? Well, I'll just ask it. Is this your first time to be in a city when not just NHL, where a team can capture a major championship?
I was in Vancouver 12 years ago.
Dumb question. I should
I
have thought that through.
Oh
wow.
So that was the one time. I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. That was.
Well, I hope you have a better experience than 12 years ago, then.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Be safe. We want Parker back.
Yes, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Okay.
No, it'll be a good time. But yeah, there's really not a lot of Canucks related stuff going on. It is June. The Canucks aren't usually very active in June until the draft coming up. However, there was like a little bit of talk about this Willander guy this morning, and we're gonna run with it. Do we know anything about him?
No, he looks like a mix between William and whoever and Hoglander. But yeah, Willander. I did hear. Where did we see this, Parker? Who started talking about this?
So Rick Dollywall put out a tweet this morning.
That's right.
But it was really Harmon Dial's article. Did I get lost?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. It was Harmon Dial's article in The Athletic, basically saying at the Combine it was Willander and a couple other guys where they basically took these guys out to dinner. Tom Willander, Nate Danielson, and Colby Barlow. Possible that there are others, but there's a few names floating around at least in the first round here.
So I did. Thank you for that reminder. And it might be my internet actually, because I think yesterday I was buffering a couple times too. So I'll try and fix that for next show. I did look him up after I saw that story as well, Parker, and was happy to know that Willander is a right shot defenseman from Sweden, as everyone could probably guess from the picture and from the name. But the scouting report that I did read on him, and it was really one article, is Harm Dial in The Athletic. He said that he's a great skater. He's got decent size, 6'1", 190 or whatever. Maybe I got it wrong. He says he's not the most.
Is what I see, but
okay,
that maybe it was different at the Combine.
Yep, and he's not the most dynamic playmaker, but he plays quite aggressive, and he's a good skater. So I presume then that we don't expect major offense, but we expect a guy who is able to get the puck out of the zone. So that's what I read, and that sounds fine to me.
Yeah, so I'll give you the summary that I'm sort of using here. So we'll start with Elite Prospects sort of blurb, right? They do one blurb on every player. They have more in their draft guide, but I don't have that. But I'll read the blurb. Willander's value stems from the combination of high-end skating and motor. He's always engaged defensively, using his dynamic posture and evasive footwork to guide attackers away from the middle and break up plays on boards. When you add the fact that he's both strong and skilled physically and relentlessly competes for every puck, he is a nightmare to play against. Even if you start or manage to gain an advantage, Willander has the quickness to recover most of the time. So really skating and maybe just motor, right? Just drive. Now where it gets a little bit iffy, right, is the Canucks are picking 11th, right? And this isn't a name we've really heard before, which is a bit of a red flag, right? Because you know, usually you hear about sort of the top 10, right? You've sort of heard the names at this point. This isn't a name I had heard. So some of the rankings, for example, one I like is Bob McKenzie because he gets it from like scouts and like it's sort of an aggregate. It's not his opinion. 46. Craig Button, 8.
46, 8.
So, some other ones, though. Elite Prospects has them at 23. Sportsnet has them at 18. Dauber at 39.
Yeah.
What else is there? McKean's at 23. Daily Faceoff at 29. So, mid to late first is sort of where this guy is overall projected. Consolidated ranking has him at 28. So, not super high.
Yeah.
However, maybe trade back potential. I don't usually like trading back unless it's like the NFL draft because there's usually a lot of value and players playing right away anyways. Trading back scares me a little bit unless again, you have a guy you really like and you're sure you can get him a few picks later. Maybe you add some value or maybe they use that to shed a contract potentially as well. So it's interesting to see that they're sort of having these dinner appointments with guys who are maybe a little bit off the board, right? Guys you didn't see at 11, but maybe you saw around 17 to 20. Maybe that's also an indication of something as well.
That is a great point that, yes, maybe these guys might be a bit of a reach at 11. So they're covering all their bases. Obviously, they're not going to take Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli out for dinner because that just they do their 15 to 20 minutes per guy, and that's enough because they know they're not going to be there. So yeah, you can. It's intriguing. It makes for a good talking point. It might not say a lot, although I will say this. You know how the Athletic and many things Parker outlets do their mock drafts, and even the Athletic, Corey Pronman does his, Scott Wheeler does his. But last week on the 8th, three of them combined: Pronman, Scott Wheeler, and a guy named Max Bultman. Have you heard of him? I haven't.
Nope.
Max Bultman. So they did the mock draft, and they each took turns collectively. Not collectively. They each took turns picking pick 1, pick 2, pick 3. So it got to number 11, Vancouver Canucks, and Bultman. It was his turn, and they were supposed to do this exercise pretending they were the GM and trying to think of what each team needs, not just who they like the most. And he picked Tom Willander. And he says, he says, it's surprising to see Ryan Leonard still on the board here in this mock draft. But with Vancouver well stocked on the wing and thinner at their D pipeline, snatching out Willander makes a lot of sense. He's a remarkable skater with size in all situations of value and projects to be a big minute type on the right side for the Canucks. Again, a mock draft, but here's him right at 11. Right at 11.
Yeah, it's a lot of smoke, eh? Like it's for, I mean, how far out from the draft are we? Was it like 2 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks?
28, 29, yeah.
28th. Yeah, so about 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, that's a lot of smoke coming from this particular place, right? When you have that mock draft that gets it, you have Harman Dial having his name as the main sort of name. You have Rick Dollywall then responding to Jason Bruff's tweet with that Athletic article saying Canucks like Willander a lot. Was told on the weekend that they are very high on him. Apparently Sat was talking about him on the radio today. Like there was way too much involved around what's his name? Willander.
Willander.
I'm
Yeah.
like thinking Willainen and I'm getting all crossed up. But yeah, like there's a lot of smoke around this. I get a little wary at 11, but if you have a guy and you don't think he's going to be there later, the thing is, like you mentioned, like guys like Benson, might be available around there, and everything we hear about them is about Benson is fantastic, and Leonard sort of same boat, which scares me a little bit.
Yes,
to maybe be reaching again for a native position. We've been burned by that before here, which does scare me.
Yes. Yeah, so it's funny. I guess after the consensus top 5, if you put Michkov in there, which I still do, then it starts to break down a little bit. And then break down a little bit more at 11 and beyond. So I agree with everything you said. And the other thing that we were talking about, Parker, before we came on the air is we keep talking about these other two right-handed defenseman, and I'd never even heard of Willander until today, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, the other two being what? Is Reinbacher a righty?
Yep, he is.
Reinbacher and Sandin Pellikka?
Exactly. And then
So-
I've heard, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was just going to say Sandin Pellikka was not taken out for dinner by the Canucks, reportedly. So here's what a little blurb from the Athletic article here says. Willander, a 6'1" right-hand defenseman, is one of the draft class's biggest risers. He was projected to go middle or late first round for most of the year, but after a strong performance for Sweden at the U18s, that's changed a little bit. He's a pretty strong bet to go in the top 10 to 15 picks, and may even be the second defender off the board after David Reinbacher, who's unlikely to be available at 11.
Yeah. So this one article that I quoted referred to Parker exactly that. They got Reinbacher at 7 or 8. They got Willander at 11. Then they got Simashev left D at 16, and they have, how do you say his name? Sandin Pellikka.
Pellikka.
They have him at 18. So in this case, this one does have Willander as a second pick defenseman. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, and that does track, right? Everything we've sort of read here in the last few minutes of, some people have him way later, but maybe those are some earlier rankings, and some of the newer ones have here. I get a little wary of being like, okay, well, you look at his numbers in that U18 tournament, 7 games. He was a defenseman, 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points.
That's good.
Plus 6. Now here's the standout: 7 games, 27 penalty minutes. So that nastiness, maybe rearing its head a little bit. He doesn't, like in his regular games. 39 games for Rogel and 22 PIMs. It's not like crazy.
Right.
But apparently he does have a bit of an edge that can come out from time to time.
So I was, as you were reading out the description, Parker, of great skater, gets the puck out of trouble, got a bit of a nasty edge. That doesn't. I'm not leading you here. Does that really describe any current Canucks player to you? Not for me.
Not really. No.
Yeah.
And usually I don't care about that too much nowadays, right? Like it's a skill game for the most part. The ones that you think about that like having that nasty edge are usually the good players too, right? Like now people are talking about Matthew Tkachuk, right? Like his physicality and everything. But it's like it's also the fact that he's, absolutely phenomenal at scoring goals and carrying his team. So I think having that aspect on a player can be a spark, right? At least somewhat, right? If you have a guy who's going out there and he's being aggressive and, he's still, the light hasn't left his eyes from playing on a bad Canucks team for years, and he's going out and being tenacious, maybe that rubs off on the other players.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to mention Fangirl's comment because she actually, right when we did our intro, Fangirl used her 11-month membership message. Thank you, Fangirl. Well, we don't have it set up for messages. It's kind of like a a notification. So, Fangirl, we appreciate your support. By the way, Parker, I got to meet her on the weekend. She was in town. It was pretty cool, actually. It was pretty cool. And she also said maybe he could be like a Bieksa. Yeah, Bieksa was nasty when he needed to be, but he wasn't he was a good skater. Good skater.
Yeah,
wasn't
skater.
like elite. Wasn't an amazing skater though. But yeah,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying,
Wasn't a standout.
Fangirl. Yeah. Good suggestion though. Good suggestion. Okay, so given everything that we've learned, Parker, in the last 12 hours about Willander, if they step up to the mic and pick him, and I'm sure Patrick Alvin will either butcher his name or will say it the Swedish way,
No,
like he
he
did
will
with
nail it.
Lekaramaki.
Yeah.
What would be your first reaction? Would it be, obviously the answer depends on who else is out there, but truly.
It really depends on if one of those guys like a Benson or a Leonard who we've just heard, or by some craziness, a Michkov slides down that far.
Yes.
Then that would be my reaction, right? However, if all those guys are off the board and we're starting to get to people that I've never really heard of or thought about too much, then my reaction would probably be like, I wonder if they could have traded back a bit. I guess not, because they probably would have if they could have.
Yep.
All right. We'll see. Right? Because again, it's probably not going to have an impact for a few years,
Yeah.
I'd be content, I would say.
Yeah, right. I think the fact that he's a right-hand D, I think that helps a little bit. He's not like a left winger or a left-hand D, so at least, man, that's another thing about it. By the way, Peter, thank you for using your 5-month membership message. Appreciate your support. The thing is, and now with sending Pelika or Pelika, the last time I asked you ever again. Pelika, Reinbacher, Willander, and Simashev. 3 of those 4 are right shot D, and I don't. You never pick based on position, but if the Canucks do think one of those guys falls in their lap and is the best player available, 75% chance that you're getting a right shot D man, which is good. That's what the Canucks need, obviously.
Yeah, you want to pick best player available, but defensemen do inherently have more value. So if it is close, and you're picking between a winger and a right shot defenseman, then the right shot defenseman's probably going to get you farther. But that can also backfire.
Are you streaming? You streaming a draft this year?
I want to.
That's cool.
I plan to. I haven't really thought about that far. That's still 2 weeks away. I got time.
I have to run a work meeting. Really good timing. Yeah, that's great. I'll just have yours on in the background.
Sounds good. Maybe I'll block that on my calendar right now.
28th.
28th, 4 p.m.
Yeah. There you go.
All right.
Okay.
So that's Willander.
Yeah. Not bad.
Do we want to talk about the other guys? Because it's probably going to be Willander, right? Like I feel like there's just or unless we hear something a week from now that's totally different. But I don't know. You remember last year, right? All the it's going to be Karamaki, right?
Yeah.
It was sort of known going into it. I think most of these teams sort of know what the others are going to do. They're not a very creative league, not very secretive.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I must admit though, Parker, I don't remember. Well, I haven't paid attention to the draft combine aside from the video of seeing Connor Bedard do 14 pullouts, which is pretty impressive actually. But I don't even remember the draft combine being a big place for either moves. But I guess it basically starts the 2 weeks off of GMs talking to each other, I guess, right? Because they're all there.
Yeah. I'm watching your sign rotate. That's fancy.
Oh, this stayed up all night, and then I don't even need it. It doesn't even show up. Thanks.
I feel like the combine to me is like the place for people to fall, right? Like no one's like, oh, did you see this guy's VO2 max? Like he's no, it's like whoa, this guy did 0 pull-ups, and then it doesn't matter anyways because you can train for a couple months and be able to do pull-ups. They just haven't tried, right?
Speaking of which, Jack says, how many can you do? We don't turn this into a competition because I'm going to lose. My upper body's so weak. I could probably do legit. I can do a few. I've done them before, but not a lot.
Yeah, I could do a handful. I could probably knock out 7 or 8.
I'll go with 3 for me.
Although, who knows? It's been a while. It's been a couple months.
Yeah. Well, you're an elite athlete, though.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But we're not adding pull-up competition. Yeah, to our list of our ever-growing list of athletic competitions.
Canucks After Dark Combine. Let's see what we can do. Break out the VO2 max.
Sell some ticket. That VO2 is that the thing where you bike as long as you can?
I don't even know how it works.
Yeah.
But that is it. It is the biking one. Okay. But it looks miserable.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you bike until you pass out, or
it looks like it. I don't know. They got the mask on. It's
that doesn't sound fun.
It looks miserable.
Okay, just for fun, 30 seconds. Name the one event, and you can make it up. What's the one event that you crush at a combine, and you can even make one up?
What events are there?
Well, mine would be sushi eating, but I'm not sure if that's highly. I
don't think that's in there. So what do? They do grip strength. Oh. They do, which I don't think I have great grip strength. I think I do okay at that. Bench, I probably wouldn't do great at. I don't do bench very often. Standing long jump, I might do okay at that, but I was never great at it growing up. Vertical jump, I don't think I could jump that high. I can't.
20 years ago I could, but not. Look at me.
There's the agility test, the lateral movement, the Y balance. There's the
that's like the letter Y, right? Not a question Y.
Yes,
that's
the letter Y, which is like a single leg balance something, and that's all the ones now. They used to do single leg squats, push-ups, Yeah, they did a bunch of stuff. I think my best would probably be like standing long jump or something, maybe something agility based. But
Yeah.
I don't think I can do much else very well.
Yeah, absolutely none of those appeal to me. No. Yeah.
No.
I used to be a good athlete. I did, like, not amazing, but I used to be good. And then my boys don't believe me somehow, so let's convince them. Yeah. Okay. That's not bad.
All right, so that's Willander
Yep.
/ draft combine. What else we got? Do we want to talk?
Well, why don't we
What
talk
else?
about Ethan Bear
Yeah.
first, and then so remember on our show 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were talking about him not playing in the semifinal or the final of the World Championships because he got hit in the corner at the end of the Finland quarterfinal game, a game that Canada won quite easily. And unfortunately, he didn't get to celebrate with the teammates because he was too busy going back to the bench. Everyone was was it a hand? Was it a wrist? It turns out it was a shoulder, Parker, and he's going to need shoulder surgery. Where did this come from?
Yeah, it does feel like this happens a lot, eh?
Oh.
So here's the quote. Basically, it was reported by Rick Dollywall, and then it was confirmed by Post Media. I had a Province article here from Patrick Johnston, basically saying the lead on this article is it's a question of when, not if, Ethan Bear gets shoulder surgery.
Oh.
So basically, he will need it at some point. So it says basically here's the options. One, he could rehab the injury.
Yeah.
Which means he would be ready at the start of next season, giving the Canucks their ideal defensive lineup, but there would be a risk of re-injury, which could be a more complicated surgery later. Or he could undergo surgery in the coming weeks, which means he would start the season on the injured list, but it could guarantee a long-term fix for his shoulder.
If you're the player, don't you opt for the latter? Like, why would you risk?
You'd think so, except there's the contract thing here, right? Like,
okay.
he's an RFA right now. They probably want him to be in there for game one. Yeah, it is a tricky one.
By the way, we can keep talking about this, but I want to highlight Lucas's donation. Thank you, Lucas. Canucks After Dark street hockey tourney for charity in 2024. Proceeds go to Canucks for Kids or Canucks Autism Network. That's not a bad idea.
It is a good idea. And I think we'd probably discussed this like a year or two ago too. Like that as a thought. It's it would just come down to us actually organizing it. I think that would be something fun to do.
We'll see. Parker will actually allow me to be on his team. So, but thank you, Lucas, for that donation. No? We'll see how I do at the combine.
Yeah, we might have to do a little draft.
So Ethan Bear, shoulder surgery. So I hear what you're saying, though. Yes, it comes at horrible timing for not only worry about the club, but for him. He's got no contract.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, he's an RFA, so I mean, he has a QO due of 2.2 million, which would be just for the 1 year if he went with the QO. Basically, what the article also says is 2-year deal would be reasonable, but likely given his injury would be a 1-year deal. Basically, the team would be playing it safe, saying
qualify him, right? And then
qualify him with 2.2. Maybe give him a year at 2.5 or 3, and then be like, okay, we'll make sure your shoulder's still working, and then maybe that puts Bear in a position to get more money next year.
That path makes sense.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So it's basically a show me season for him, and basically it's like show me in the new year when you're back in full health.
Yeah.
Maybe he's gonna have to do that, man.
Yeah, and then so what do the Canucks do to fill that gap, right? Are we just saying, all right, go to training camp and hope someone stands out, right? Hope Cole McWard's looking good, right? Or do they go back to or do they go back to like a Juleson or a Burrows or something, right? It's or Luke Shen.
Yeah. I heard J-Pat talk about the fact that if the talks were cold, with both Juleson and Burrows. But now, if Ethan Bear elects for surgery, then do you go back to at least one of them?
Yeah, and maybe it's a little more intriguing for them too, right? Because maybe they have a roster spot, or more likely have a roster spot to start the year. And who knows? How long would that surgery keep him out for, right? Yeah. Are we talking the first month of the season, right? Are we talking 12 games?
Right.
Are we talking 30 games, right? I don't know. I'm genuinely not sure.
If you had to pick between Burrows and Juleson for 1 year, yeah,
I think so.
Just more solid of a player for you.
I think so. Juleson hasn't really stood out for me at any point.
Yeah.
Burrows has had those moments, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Juleson does play pretty tough though, without taking stupid penalties. Yeah.
As like an 8.
Yeah, and the Burrows is a 7.5.
Yeah. Again, the Canucks are, beggars can't be choosers in the Canucks case.
Ryan Johnson's been singing Jet Wu's praises down in
He has
Abbotsford.
been.
Yeah.
Jet Wu has that tenacity, which I really like, right? He's just he just wants to line people up. And I think that's very fun. It would be great if out of camp someone like Wu made a statement, right?
Yeah.
I think the Canucks need one of those, right? Like Kyle Burrows was, right? Like he came out and worked hard for the season. When he got his chance, he was actually good enough to earn a spot. The Canucks need someone to earn a spot because they have spots open. It's just whether or not someone takes it.
Yes, and then a lot of love for Hirose. Well, not a lot of love. At least one person in the chat, and of course after Hughes and OEL, you have like a logjam. You mentioned Willander already. There's Hirose. There's Rathbone. He's still on the team. So there's already 3 or 4 guys that could be competing on the left side. Brisebois, who has one more year left on his contract. So
yeah, it's a lot of just mediocre depth, right? Like really though, they have a lot of like 7, 8, 9 defensemen.
Actually, Brisebois in for 2 years. Excuse me, he has a 2-year contract. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right. But like, you don't want Brisebois to be in your lineup every night, right? In the NHL, you don't want most of these guys to be in your lineup every night in the NHL.
Yeah.
If you're, you don't want those guys eating 16 minutes a night. That's a little scary.
Yeah. You mentioned an intriguing name when we were talking about the right side. We can flip from right to left. In Luke Shen, he had a good season with us. He played very well. It wasn't like amazing, but he didn't suck. He played very well for Toronto in their playoff run. What do you think happens with him? Do you think we don't know? Have you heard anything about what he's saying? Probably not about what he wants to do.
Not really. I would be shocked if he wasn't ending up on a contender. To me, right? That's the thing though, right? Like, is Luke Shen? What does he want to be? Does he want to be a number 6 somewhere like Vancouver, where he might get playing time as a number 4 sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Or does he want to be a 6-7 who maybe plays 55 games? And is sort of an ace in the playoffs, right? And sort of the injury, the guy, when injuries strike, he'll get more minutes. Because I think he can fit both roles. It really depends on what he's looking for, right? Is he trying to? Is he just wanting to win? Is he wanting to play in the playoffs? Then this probably, this isn't the place, right? As in most likely, even if you had the Canucks at 50-50 make the playoffs next year. There's teams that will make the playoffs next year that we're pretty sure on, right? Like 85-90%. So if I was him, that might be a route I'd go. However, if he wants to go somewhere that he's more comfortable and already has family set up and things like that, like maybe Toronto or here, then that's a different set of values entirely. And I don't know what he's looking for.
And contract wise, wow, what a steal! $850,000 for the past 2 seasons. Before that, he was $800,000. Before that, $700,000, $800,000, and then before that, his biggest contract. Wow, when he had a Leafs contract 5 years at 3.6, like a decade ago. But wow, so he's gonna be wouldn't he want at least $1 million?
I feel like he should be commanding 1.5, right? Like minimum. I'd be surprised. The flat cap probably is like worst possible time for him, right? Only up by $1 million. If it had spiked this year, then maybe he's pushing 2.
Yeah.
But probably not.
So, having said everything you just talked about, do you see a path for him back to Vancouver? Or kind of what you said, probably contender is more realistic.
I just don't see it. Like it just doesn't happen very often that UFAs get traded and come back. And I just don't know. I don't know where the desire would come from, really.
Right. Okay. That's fair. So Ethan Bear, I guess we'll wait to hear both from a contract perspective and a surgery decision perspective.
Yep. That's where we're at.
All
right. Any other Canuck stuff you want to cover?
Yeah, really quickly. I did a whole video on it, but I love your take. Edmund says it. I know you've talked about Garland in the past. We know that we've actually addressed this once before, but it came up again because a guy from The Athletic wrote about it. And it was basically an article, Parker, about the top 10 trade targets for the Rangers. So remember, this is from a Rangers perspective. It's kind of funny. They called Connor Garland a pain in the ass to play. I don't know if that's true. Hey,
I think that's a fair descriptor.
Yeah.
I just don't think we saw it much lately.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So they basically talked about Garland and or either salary retention and or a sweetener to go for a Lafreniere. So
yeah,
I
did see that. It seemed silly to me from their perspective. Just there's been so much smoke about them having the Canucks trying to move Garland and just being unable. Like every team is sort of collectively like, why? Like, don't help these guys, make them pay, right? Like, make them pay to get out of this thing. And for the Canucks, I mean, that would be, a steal to do that, right? You clip your cap space, you get rid of a player who, I'm still moderately high on. I wouldn't even say high, like lukewarm on, I guess. But to get a player with some cachet, he hasn't performed, but I guess if you're the Rangers and you're trying to make a push, adding a guy like Garland at, if it gets retained, maybe you're paying him 3.5. Yeah, that probably helps you a lot over how Lafreniere has been. However, it seems like a risky move when I feel like you could probably get him for essentially free. Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And again, I don't think the Canucks should trade him for free. I think there's other routes they should go to clear up some cap space if they need to. I don't think Garland should be that one, but yeah, it's I just didn't. It just didn't seem right that article. Like I don't see that happening.
Right. And then when we talk about clearing out cap space, correct me if I'm wrong, Parker. There's either the buyout route or there's a trade where there's a three-way those are only two things you can do, correct?
Essentially, yeah. And I feel like I just feel like there's gonna be a team that will want, I don't know, like a Bavillier even, right? Like,
yeah, please.
Yeah. You might be able to get rid of him for nothing or get rid of him for and like throw a fourth in there or something. Like, I don't know. I just don't see that the Canucks need to trade 11 to get some cap space, right? Or just completely get rid of Connor Garland for some cap space. Seems, I don't know. It just seems like overkill.
Yeah, it kind of loops back to our very first topic when we were talking about draft. Yeah, I don't want them to trade down. Because unless it's a package that blows your socks off. Yeah, I want them to keep 11. I really do.
Especially not before the draft.
Yes.
Right, because if there is a big faller. Right, let's say again, not going to happen, but let's say a Michkov drops to 11, but the Canucks had already traded out of it. Yeah, they'll never live that down, right? Especially if he comes here and scores 40 goals, and then it would be crazy.
Yeah. Good point about not trading down until the day. Yeah, that's a really good point actually.
Until the pick is there, and a team that wants that because that's the thing, right? There's some value in that too, right? If a team that's picking 16th, knows a team at 12 is interested in a guy that they want, right? Suddenly that 11th pick has a lot of value to them because they want to snipe it before those guys can get there. And you'd want to do it at the last possible second, really.
Yeah.
So you'd think that it would have a little bit more value at that point.
That's true. And the Canucks aren't afraid to pull the trigger at the draft table. We obviously know about the Sedins back in the day. We know about JT Miller back in 2019. There's one other example I've heard of that they traded on the draft. No, I can't think. Do you remember any others where they traded actually at the draft? Yeah, but JT Miller that's only 4 years ago, relatively recent.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago.
Do you remember the goalie that we got? So we traded... we got Miller, and we had to trade.
That's when we got Demang, right?
Is
that what you're referring to?
Oh no! What the heck? Miller was traded to the Vancouver Canucks by Lightning for goal. Did we have Mazanik, Marek Mazanik, a 3rd round pick? I'm confused. I was thinking the wrong way. Never mind. That was like the worst explanation ever.
I thought it was Demang, but it was Mazanik.
Okay. Yeah. Exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a question about JT Miller earlier about that Columbus. Oh gosh, I was gonna start and I forgot to, but I'll ask you.
Spartan asks, rumor has it Columbus is looking to trade number 3 for a strong center. Do you think Miller and 11 can make a deal? Oh, I'd like that. That sounds
not enough.
Awesome. I do not think it'll work. Not at this caliber, right?
Yeah.
When you have, Bedard, Fantilli, and then, I mean, who goes after that, right? Is
Carlson,
it Michkov? Is it Carlson, right? Like there's...
Or Smith. Yeah.
I think if that's an option for you, because it immediately solves your cap space problem, right?
And you replace the player.
It makes your team a lot worse, most likely. But yeah, you go get, if it's Leo Carlson, for example, right?
Yeah.
He can probably step in a lineup and at least play, right? Right away. He's not going to be as good as JT Miller is. But, in a few years, he'll be making a lot less and might be as good. I think if you can do that, sure.
All day for the Canucks. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah, because you're $8 million saving, and you have a guy who might be better than, he won't be better than Miller right away, but he'll be better than Miller down the road. Yeah, you do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. And who knows? Maybe Fantilli drops to 3. Right? It is possible.
Yes, that's true. Oh, and by the way, people you guys remembering the Schneider,
right?
Yes, for the pick that turned out to be Horvat. That's a good point. Of course. How could I forget that?
All right. So I think that's it Canucks wise.
Yeah.
I think. What about, do we want to talk Stanley Cup Finals? We kind of did already, right? I mean, Vegas is probably going to win.
Yeah.
Cool.
Who's your MVP? Is it Marchessault or is it Hill?
I honestly haven't watched that much.
Yeah, Marchessault's been scoring like crazy.
That makes me mad. I don't like him. No, I think, I like literally all I've been doing is, because some of the games have been, the first 2 games weren't very close.
Yeah.
Game 3, I saw that it was close, and so I watched the third in overtime.
Right.
And then game 4, I didn't watch either because it wasn't very close.
Yeah, that's
if I
fair.
remember correctly. So
Marchessault, Eichel, and Marchessault has 24 points. Eichel is 23 and Stone is 21. But Marchessault has 13 goals, and he's been scoring a lot in the Stanley Cup Finals. Obviously,
that's
he's got
probably
goals.
it then, eh?
But then Aiden Hill, he hasn't, he's good. He's really
Which
good.
is weird, because he was, remember that Martin Jones-Aiden Hill tandem in San Jose? How
not so
miserable that was. What was he doing in San Jose? Oh, he had 906 in San Jose. I guess
he's got
Jones
930.
Problem.
Yeah,
he's actually never really been bad. That's surprising because I thought he was.
Oh yeah, you're right. We were bamboozled by Jones then.
Yeah, Martin Jones was. What did he? No, it wasn't even Martin Jones. It was James Reimer that year.
Oh,
okay, I'm all mixed up. Yeah. And
regardless,
Aiden
Hill
that year.
Aiden Hill 10-4, 934, and 211. Those are pretty gaudy numbers. Those are good.
Those are very good numbers. Yeah, he definitely has a real look at it. Although, if you have a guy who's scoring as much as Marchessault is, that might be enough to take it.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think if Aiden Hill gets a shutout tomorrow, they vote right at the end of the game, correct?
Yeah, I think they vote in the third period, but they can add conditions to their vote. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they can say so if they got 2 guys at this basically the same level, and they say, well, if this guy scores another goal, then it's him, or if this guy completes the shutout, it's him. I believe they're allowed to add caveats to their vote.
Right, because they got some guy going through all the caveats, but then they can't wait till after the game to do the vote, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's really cool, man. I didn't know that.
I might be completely making that up, but I feel like I've heard that before.
Interesting. That's good to know.
I heard that, and I cannot find a source for you.
Yeah, no problem. I believe you. I believe everything you say.
Excellent.
For the most part.
All right.
I do think it'll be Vegas as well. By the way, I agree with
Yeah.
you. So I'm
You
hoping
need Vegas in 7 though for your
whatever.
bet, so
I'm fine. I'm fine losing by 1 point. It's a lot better than losing by 4.
true. All right. Any other anything else you wanna take here, Clay? Any other comments you want to bring up?
I'm okay for now, unless I know we want to do an earlier one because you got a early morning flight. We could probably wrap up in the next 3 to 5 minutes. If anyone else got any last questions, would that work?
Let's take one more from Edmund, Canucks related here.
Okay.
Who would you like as a third line center? Because that is a hole the Canucks have
Yes.
currently. And who do you think realistically the Canucks could get?
So I'll start. I didn't do a lot of my own research, but I do vividly remember an Athletic article where Drance and Dow were looking at some options, and the two they had at the top were Pia Suter and David Kampf, and then they had Teddy Bluger as well up there. So guys that aren't going to break the bank, they're staying away from the overpriced guys or the older guys. So those are 3 guys that they talked about. Was Suter, who I really like as well. I don't know how to say his name, Pius or Pius. Yeah.
I think it's. I actually don't know. I was going to say something that I actually had no idea what the answer was.
Yeah, just like the consummate conditions. I'm just kidding.
I feel like I've heard that before. Yeah. I like Suter a bit as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he made 3.25 last year, though, right? Like, how much of a pay cut is he going to be taking?
That's true.
That scares me a little bit. You don't want Neil Zoman to be your 3C?
No, he's my 4C, man. He's my 4C.
You don't want Sheldon Dries to be your 3C?
No, he's my 8C.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Spartan's asking about Ratu. I think Ratu is at least a year or 2 away.
Yeah,
But
I don't.
But
see
there's no rush. There's no rush.
Yeah, he's young.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're on the roster right now.
Right.
Right. But the Canucks don't have much money,
Yeah.
so it's tough, right? Yeah, it's gonna have to be a cheap free agent. $2 million, $2.5 million maybe, and short term because you're gonna want that. If it goes awry, you want to be able to get out of it pretty quick.
Yeah, good point. And let's end with this one because we were talking about this before we started. So Murray, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to guess. One of us, between Parker and I, are quite active on the subreddit. We actually know how Reddit works. I think I'm already biasing the answer. So Parker, why don't you give your quick take as to what's going on there and if you have an actual opinion on it?
Yeah, I mean, so almost every subreddit, all the big ones have gone private right now because in protest of the API changes that they're proposing, that's basically going to make it so third-party apps don't exist, blah, blah, blah. It's a bunch of tech stuff, doesn't matter that much. However, that involves our hockey and our Canucks. Our Canucks was kind of painful for me because I usually go there right before the show, get the top topics of the last week because I forget what's happened sometimes, right? Like what happened last Tuesday, that's a while ago. However, so our hockey is private, I believe, until 9 p.m. tomorrow. So they will have a thread, especially if it goes to OT. It was midnight on the 14th. They will come back on. The hockey subreddit is private right now. It doesn't exist, which it kind of sucks for the game tomorrow. But I think Twitter will be having a good time, and I won't be on. I'll be watching at. I think Beer Park is where I'm going, which sounds great. It's that's the summary.
Well, there you go. And that's awesome that you will be going. I'm just looking at future shows. We may have a thin one on the 19th, but then check this out. June 26th, 2 days before the draft. July 3rd, right after free agency starts. And then, so I think, Parker, we did a pretty good job of making it through the dog days. I guess it helps too that at least there's a Stanley Cup Final that's going all the way until the draft, basically.
Yeah, and there's more coming, right? Because you got us to July 10th.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, and then there's 2 months until training camp.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So we are not out of the woods yet. Okay. But
we're halfway. Yeah. But we appreciate a smaller group today, but great questions as always, and a lot of support. So we always appreciate you guys, especially when it's not a lot of Canucks news happening right now.
Yeah, thank you all for coming out. Sorry we're wrapping up a little bit early, but there's not a lot going on. To be fair, we'll next week 19th again might be a little iffy, but 26th will be our draft prep. And then the 3rd, we'll have the draft to talk about. We'll have free agency to talk about. We'll have a lot of stuff going on. So hopefully we've got a good couple of shows coming up. So make sure you're subscribed. You should follow the podcast wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. And if you missed any part of this show, you can find it here on YouTube, or you rewind back to the beginning, or you can find it on your favorite podcast platform pretty shortly, whether, like I said, Spotify, Apple, whatever. I will have that uploaded for you shortly. Clay, any parting words this fine, warm Monday night?
I think Vegas will win. I think you're going to have a great trip. I will live vicariously through you. Just come back to us safely.
Sounds good. I leave my life in the hands of WestJet.
That's not bad.
It should be fine. It is a max 8. Anyways. All right, folks. Have a wonderful night. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you next time.